Hello, bros. We're back with Cawdor by Robinson Jeffers, a 1928 narrative poem that is the title poem of this collection. 11. When Cawdor had left the house, Concha at once busied herself to recall to life the milk-faced bandaged one on the bed. Then Michael had intervened. He said to let her alone. He said to let her have peace. But Concha, she stay fainting too long. She stopped breathing. She die. I think that would be better. But the Indian woman, trembling, went on. Then Michael held up the basin, while the other bathed the pale face. Gray jewels of water ran down in the hair. There was no response. Then Michael herself began to be frightened. She knew that her father had kept a bottle of whiskey somewhere in the room. She set the basin on the blue chair and went searching on shelves. Concha flung back the sheet and blanket to bathe the breast. How the hard strap that held the arm furrowed the flesh of the waist. The fine-grained, clear white skin was beautiful to her. The coins of rose about the small nipples astonished her. Hers were as black as the earth. She dipped her head as if to a flower's fragrance and felt the quiet breasts she had cooled with water move on her face. Farah moaned and then said faintly, "You are blind, father." Both horses were white. She moved her head on her hair. Her voice changed. "Do you love me, Concha? You never were jealous. I've wondered at you." "Where's Cawdor?" Michael returned and said sullenly, "I've found it, and there's no glass. She'd better suck from the bottle." But Farah lay regardless of her, and dropping her right forearm across her breast, exposed the splints and folds on heavy folds of linen that shelled the shoulder and the left arm. Then with pain-dwindled lips, "Well," she said, "give it to me. It's time for me now to taste of my father's friend." "Help me sit up, Concha." She sipped and choked. It spilled on her chin. The burning fragrance filled all the room. Michael took back the bottle and said, "Why did you lie? You lied horrible things." Farah, dull-eyed with racked mouth, the coughing had hurt her arm. "Not lies, every word faithful as death. I lay between your father and your brother, like a snake between the rock and the stone. Give me the bottle. Give it back to me, Michael. I have to hush this torment. Your father'll come back and beat me with his fist like a wild beast. He's like a beast in his rages. Every word's lies. But if it were true, why did you tell him? Because he tortured me." Michael crossed the room to the corner and saw in the east window, high up in the dark pane, a little drop of red light. She pressed her face against the glass and cupped it with her two hands to shut the lamp light away. Hood's waning fire, like a red star under the diamond stars. "I'll go and ask him," she said, turning. "He'll tell me every last word was a lie." "What did you see? Oh, what did you see, Michael?" Fern said, shaking. "A fire on the rock? It's only some vaquero from inland. Hood wouldn't build one." Not tonight, she answered. "I saw nothing. I saw the sky and some stars, Concha. Take care of her, will you? Get her to sleep." As Michael crossed to the door, a dim noise, like a gunshot, seemed to be heard. She said, "Oh, what was that?" "Concha, you heard it? Listen." But Farah, laughing with an ashen face, lived here all her life long and never has heard a wave slapping the sand at the creek mouth. When she'd gone out, Farah said, "Concha, my father's blindness was crystal to hers. How could she stay in the room and let Cawdor go out to find his prey in the night? Did she know nothing? Give me the bottle, dear Concha." "Dear Concha," she drank and said, "I'd no other way to keep him. He was going away. Poor Hunter. I set a beast on his track that he's no match for. The gun's no good, boy hunter. You might as well toss acorns. Two bulls, Concha, fighting by starlight. The young one is gored. Ah, Concha, one of my loves was locked in the hill by the oak. Now the other's safe too. Listen, my birthday's tonight. Has to be kept," she stammered. "I've told no one but you, and here's my father's friend to sit up with. Go down and get 2 glasses, Concha, and a pitcher of water." She called her back from the door. "Concha, the water in the house is all stale. Go out to the spring among the calla lilies and fill the pitcher. Don't hurry, Concha. I'm resting now." As Concha went out, Farah stealthily undid the belt that locked her arm to her side. When the Indian was gone, she passed one-handed the strap through the buckle, the tongue thrown back to let it slide free. She knotted the end of the strap to the top of the carved bedpost, kneeling on the pillow, tightening the knot between her hand and her teeth. She dropped the collar about her neck and shuffled her knees until they slipped from the mattress. The right arm sustained the left one to ease its pain in the fall. She could have breathed by standing, but while her mind remained, she would not, and then was unable. Concha, downstairs, had much to tell Ilaria. Akana was there too, in the kitchen, and Concha's boy, Romano, and Dante Vitello, the Swiss. All questioned her. She'd forgotten the water and found the glass when little Romano, in his child voice, Escucha on rotten. Listen, mother, a mouse in the ceiling. But no one looked up nor down until he fetched the gray cat from under the stove and wanted to take her upstairs. Concha forbade him, but listened and heard the noise in the ceiling change, from a soft stroking to a dull shudder in the wood. The shudder was Farah's agony, the backs of her feet stroking the floor. She hung as if kneeling, but Concha said, "A trade rat, maybe, no mouse, but I must go up." The noise had ceased. She screamed in the hallway above and flung the glasses on the floor. The people below stared at each other. Her cries were timid, rhythmic, mechanical, like a ground squirrel's when he sits up beside his burrow and watches a dog hunting on the other side of the fence. At length, the Kana ran to the stair. The others followed, and little Romano with gray puss in his arms. They looked past Concha, who stood in the door, not daring to enter. The girl appeared kneeling, only her knees were lifted. A little above the floor, her head devoutly drooped over. She was naked, but the bandaged arm, the coins about the small nipples were now as black as Concha's, the lips dark, the fine skin mottled with lead color. Ilaria pushed in and lifted the body. Jesus Akana then found his knife and cut the strap. They stretched the slender body on the bed and began to talk, but Dante Vitello remembered at length to pump the ribs with his hands. They saw the lids of the eyes, after a time, flutter and close. The Swiss paused from his labor. The breathing went on by itself. Cawdor returned from the rock with Michael, but would not enter the house. He seemed going toward the sea when she left him. He went as far as the workshop and fetched tools for digging, a lantern, matches to light it. He chose the tools with a clear mind. This work had to be done because of the coyotes. It proved more dreadful than he'd imagined, but it was done. The dreadfulness itself had purged his mind of emotion. He took no pains to conceal the grave, for at this time discovery meant nothing to him. He desired nor feared nothing, not even to put back time and undo an act. However, no person ever went up there. He rolled stones on the grave against the coyotes and gathered the tools. But when he had carried them halfway home, he threw them with the lantern, too, into the creek under the starless redwoods. His mind ceased there, as if the tools had been strings between the world and his mind. These cut, it closed. In the bright of dawn, before sunrise began, the lank steers wheeled their line when he waved his arms. He cursed them with obscene words. But why? And there stood 30 in a row, all in a row like soldiers staring at him with strained-up heads. He was in the pasture on the highest dome of the hill. Wild, fragrant wind blew from the burning east. A handful of cloud high up in the air caught fire and vanished. A point of more excessive light appeared on the ridge by the lone oak and enlarged. Without doubt, the sun. But if it were the horn of a flaming beast, we'd have a horned beast to see by. What have I lost by doing through a blind accident what I ought to have done in cold blood? Was Hood anything to me? I have lost nothing. He'd have counted Farah lost if he'd thought of Farah. She did not enter his mind. If I'd lost much, it's likely I'd not lie down, but gather again and go on. His flesh and bones were soaked with aching weariness, but that was nothing either. his eyes dazzled in the rivers of light, and the sea lay at his feet, flat and lifeless, far down, but flecked with the steps of the wind. He went down to the house and heard that Farah had hanged herself and been saved. But that was nothing either. No, something. Where were you? He said to Concha. She sent me down. She sent me down for water. When I come back, oh, I'll not see her this morning, he answered. Bring my clothes to the little room on the north and change the bed there. Hood's gone for good. He had done justly and could sleep very well there. 2 days passed before he remembered the blanket roll and the rifle dropped in the oaks when Michael came. He went and sought but never found them, but that was nothing either. And that's the end of 11. We are 30-some pages from the end of this tale, and I think I remember what happens, but not too well. All right, that's all, Buffs. Goodbye.